A Chinese chemistry student in Florida poisoned his neighbor's entire family, including their newborn baby, all because of noise complaints. Luckily, it was caught on camera and the neighbor's family survived. This came out to be a total shock to many people. Noise disputes among neighbors are quite common, but how many people would resort to using poison, especially on a 10-month-old baby? But then it's not that surprising if you know his background. Just like him, I also grew up in communist China, so maybe I could help you understand why he did it. For those of you who haven't heard about the story, let me give you a recap in chronological order. In June 2022, Umar Abdullah and his then pregnant wife moved into an apartment building directly above the Chinese student Li Xuming and his family in Florida. Li Xuming was a chemistry PhD student in the University of South Florida from 2018 until this incident happened. Umar also studied his master's degree in the University of South Florida from 2018 to 2019, and he's been working in the university since he finished his degree. So both of them studied and worked in the same university, and that's probably why they ended up renting in the same apartment building. In the beginning, they had a good and friendly relationship. Li gifted a dress to Abdullah's family after Abdullah's wife gave birth to their first child, a baby girl. But soon Li started making complaints about noises, from footsteps to even a squeaky toilet seat. After repeated complaints from Li, the Abdullahs decided to test out how bad the situation really is. So Umar contacted the building super and went to Li's apartment. The three of them waited in Li's apartment while his wife and child stayed upstairs and tried to make every movement imaginable. And that included marching around, jumping up and down, and rearranging furniture. But the three of them downstairs didn't hear much noise. And Umar thought that's it, that proved the noise wasn't that bad. But Li persisted. He ended up buying a decibel reading device, but he wasn't able to get any real readings on the supposed noise. A few months later, Umar and his family, including the baby, began losing big chunks of hair in shower. Their eyes were burning, they were suffering from headaches and dizziness, and the baby refused to eat, was coughing and vomiting, and they had to send the baby to the emergency room. As we know now, that's caused by the poisonous chemicals that Li Xuming injected into their apartment. But Umar didn't know that at that time, and they thought it was from the hot water heater. What's really creepy to me was that after injecting the poison, Li sent text to Umar again asking, quote, "Can you walk softer? We couldn't sleep last night." And Umar replied, "Sorry to hear that. My house is full of eye-burning gas from the water heater. I was hurriedly opening my windows and doors, and that was causing panic footsteps probably." And Li, being the culprit of their sufferings, just replied, "I heard it from your landlord. Sorry to hear your situation." He acted completely normal, like a psychopath. Luckily, Umar suspected that their strange illness had something to do with Li, so he bought and installed a hidden camera outside of their door in June 2023. It caught Li red-handed and also saved their lives. As you can see in the video, Li injected poison on June 26 at 8 a.m., and the next day, he did it again at 5:30 p.m. And this is only after Umar had installed the cameras. Li has apparently done this multiple times. He admitted to the university that he used a campus chemistry lab to mix and load the liquid into the syringe on multiple occasions. And if you look closely, see how he was holding his breath here? He was very careful not to inhale this poisonous mixture himself, and he was doing it fully aware of the deadly consequences it may cause. After seeing the footage, Umar reported to the police, and Li was arrested soon after. He was expelled from USF in August and deported back to China in December last year. Therefore, escaped punishment here, and I doubt he will face any consequences in China. But if Li ever tries to enter the US territory, he will face the charges again. It might be hard to believe if I tell you that Li is a father himself, and both of his children were under the age of 2 at the time of the incident. He was living with his wife and family, And yet he did this to another baby girl. To understand why he did it, let's first take a look at what's unusual about this case. First, the perpetrator Li Xunming, he's very accomplished academically. He went to 4 different colleges, has 2 master's degrees, and was currently pursuing a PhD degree. And 2, the cause of conflicts was very trivial, as we learned earlier that the noise level really wasn't that bad. And 3, this highly educated individual ended up doing something very extreme, and in this case, he poisoned his neighbor. What's interesting is, something like this has happened in China many times. In 1995, an outstanding student in Tsinghua University, one of the 2 best colleges in China, was poisoned in school, apparently as a result of jealousy. After suffering permanent damage on her eyesight, intelligence, and organs, the victim passed away in December last year. And in 2013, a graduate student at Shanghai Medical College of Fudan University, one of the most prestigious medical colleges in China, murdered his roommate by injecting poison into the dorm water fountain. He didn't even have any real conflict with the victim. He simply thought he was too arrogant. There are more cases like this in North America. In 2017, an engineer who had a PhD degree from UC Berkeley poisoned his coworker without stating any motive. In 2018, a Chinese overseas student in Pennsylvania poisoned his roommate simply because the roommate was going to move out. The same year in Canada, another Chinese chemistry PhD student poisoned his coworker and former roommate, also without any clear motive. Are you seeing a pattern yet? Chinese students with high intelligence using their knowledge to inflict fatal damages on others, all because of trivial matters. Why is this happening? Did something go wrong in their education? Unfortunately, that is the case. Instead of learning from virtuous philosophers from ancient China about showing respect, staying humble, and being generous and forgiving to others, we had to memorize writings from CCP's party leaders and the role models. For example, Lei Feng, he was a soldier of the CCP's Liberation Army, and one of his most famous quotes was, "We should treat comrades like the breeze in spring and treat the enemy as ruthless as the cold winter." So not having the baseline for morality is the main reason, but there is another factor here. Chinese schools are highly competitive. In modern China, the only way for a ordinary person whose family doesn't have a communist background or connection to survive in the society is to get into a good college, have a college degree, and hopefully get a decent job. With the one-child policy, the entire family's future rests on the single child's shoulder. They're the family's only hope. That's why Chinese schools are so competitive. It's a super high-stress, high-pressured environment. Children are taught every day to study harder than others, getting better test results, and winning against each other. And the more outstanding someone is, the more fierce the competition is for him or her. And that's why students in China are so easily triggered and ended up doing things unimaginable over seemingly trivial matters. And in Li's case, I don't know how stressful it is to complete his PhD degree, but he was living with 2 young children who probably wakes up constantly at night and not getting enough sleep. At the same time, he has to provide for a family of 4. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up hearing things that's not there. On top of that, all Chinese people who are brought up under CCP's educational system, they lack the basic appreciation for human lives. And they don't believe in karmic retribution because we were taught to be atheists in school. We're also taught to fight, to hate, and to attack according to communist ideology. So it's no surprise when these people wanted to get something done, they will use whatever means possible to achieve their goals. In ancient China, there are only 2 levels of education, a primary school level and a college level. Children in primary schools were taught basics on math, reading, and writing, but the main focus is on virtue, 德. They were taught how to become a 君子, or gentleman or a noble person according to Confucianism, how to respect elders, how to treat each other properly, how to take responsibilities, and how to tell right from wrong. And only after they learn all the basics on how to be a good and righteous person can they graduate from the primary school and move up to college level and acquire more knowledge. But after Communist Party took over China, everything's changed. The CCP labeled all the traditions as 牛鬼蛇神, which means demonic and evil, and they started a campaign to destroy them all after the start of Cultural Revolution. Again, I think these people are victims of the Chinese Communist Party. I'm not saying that's an excuse for what they have done, but it was the CCP that changed China from a civilization with great history and tradition into a nation full of people smart and capable, but without moral standard. And that's how the CCP created these highly intelligent monsters we're seeing today. Thank you for watching. I'm Ali, and I'll see you next time.